Let's talk about quality control features that come along now that we have some data processed with AFNI proc. And I want to start by reminding ourselves what we did with our processing. So I just want to open up the AFNI proc command. I'm in the AFNI Data 7 demo running the quick affine alignment to template space. And I'm just opening up the text file that has the AFNI proc command here. So at the moment, I'm in the results directory that AFNI proc output, and now I'm opening up the script that's one directory higher. And when we look at this script here and scroll down quickly, I just want to focus on the fact of how it's organized. That the central part of specifying the processing is looking at the blocks. And we have several different kind of major steps or major processing blocks that we've included in our full single subject processing that goes all the way through the regression step. But this includes aligning the EPI and the anatomical to template. Volreg is motion correction, estimating a mask. Even though we won't multiply it by our data, we'll use it to kind of mask out things for statistics. We blur the data for this voxel-wise analysis, scale it to local bold % signal change so we can interpret our fMRI EPI data meaningfully. And then we perform the regression where we include things like baseline regressors and our stimuli of interest. And just as a reminder here, we have two stimuli of interest, a visual reliable and an audio reliable. This is a block design task. And so we're going to estimate each of these primary effects. And then we're also going to ask for some general linear tests, linear combinations of these for hypothesis testing. So a simple contrast, and then this is the average of the two. But the main thing is that we have a lot of different steps that are being done and different ways that we want to check and validate whether each step was completed successfully, whether the data was appropriate for that step. And this will be a combination of visual data plots, linear plots of things like motion estimate, and also some quantitative aspects. Some of the quantities will be looked at in the AFNI proc QC HTML. All right, so with that in mind, again reminding us that we're in the results directory from AFNI proc processing, I'm going to type ls-ltr, which will list out everything in this directory in time reverse order. And here we can see that the last thing that gets created is a directory called QC_something. And this is the directory that contains the quality control output HTML that we're going to be looking at here. All right, so to open it, I'm just going to type ls of that directory. There's a lot of HTML files in it. If you're familiar with web browsing and things like that, the index.html is the primary one of focus. So we're going to use a program called open APQC.py to open up the AFNI proc quality control. And we're going to say provide infiles, and that's QC tab index and hit tab. Okay, so in the results directory, you should basically always have a QC directory that contains an index.html, and that's what we're going to open using this program. And we'll see why we use this program in a moment. I'll just note that in the beginning, there is a kind of a warning message that pops up. If I scroll back here, that message can be ignored, this one. It's fine to use this. So anyways, this is something that using the web browser Flask Python module, I try to get rid of, but that warning shows up, but it's not a problem. And now what we have is we have our HTML here, our report, that has a lot of different features. And again, we're going to look at things like alignment, motion estimation, things that we did with the regression modeling for this subject. And so this contains a mix of features. Just briefly, the way the page is organized is everything is in one long page. Similar to how AFNI proc has processing blocks that divide up the major steps that you are going to specify for your processing. During the quality control HTML review, there's kind of major what are called QC blocks or QC steps here and each of these has its own tab. So you can click on one of these and jump to part of the HTML, and you can also scroll through the HTML, and you'll see that this yellow box shows you wherever you are in here. If you hover over any of these buttons, you'll see a small hover help. It might be a little hard to see on this screen, but you can check that on your own computer. All right, and I'm going to go back to the top again. And I'll just note a couple other features. The subject ID is here because we can actually open up more than one HTML simultaneously, and so it's nice to remind ourselves what the subject ID is. We'll look at these buttons a little bit, the A buttons here, but I'll just note that there's a help button that has a lot of information about the document. It can also take you to other web links in the AFNI documentation and the help page. And this describes a lot of what I'm saying. This is also organized as one long page, so you can do text searching in here. So if you want to know something about TSNR, you can just type in the page, like Control F, TSNR, and it will bring you to part of the page about TSNR, and you can read about that. Okay, so I'll just leave this for viewing and reference later, but this help is here. Another thing to note is that when I open this page up using this program, there's this button here that says rate for saving our rating or our estimation of different features, and we'll take a look at that. And I also see buttons here that say AV and NV highlighted. If you open up your page here and you don't see these buttons active, that means you either didn't use the OpenAPQC program to open this that starts a server running in the background, or you don't have one of the Flask or Flask cores modules that you need to be able to run this functionality interactively. You can still view the web page, you just won't be able to save information on it actively, and we'll take a look at that. So hopefully you have this, and we'll show later how that you can enable that if you don't see it. All right, and as we go through this page, there's gold text in it, and any bit of gold text you can double click on and it will bring that tab to the top of the page, which might help a little bit with organization. We'll see also that when we open up multiple HTMLs to look at multiple subject QC reports simultaneously, this will not only bring this page's or this subject's section up to the top of the page, it will bring everyone's, and we'll be able to view across a lot of functionality in a convenient way. Okay, so the idea with this is for a lot of the image-based viewing that we want to have systematic views to be able to glance at and see is this appropriate or not for a given data set, whatever we're looking at. So in this case, the V org, the items that start with V tend to be volumetric views. So we'll get a few of those in a row before some other features. And this is simply a snapshot of our one representative volume from the EPI set. In this case, we have 3 runs of data that we've processed simultaneously. This happens to be the reference volume for motion outliers, the reference volume for motion correction. And this one specifically, we found it by having the fewest outliers. So hopefully this volume looks reasonable. Things that we might check here are whole brain field of view, the brain isn't cut off, that there's not major distortions, tissue contrast, things like that. Now, we're going to see that there's a lot of montage here, the different slices, so we can see 7 slices across the axial and sagittal view, so we can really see across the whole brain. But if we want to be able to look at between this 12 millimeter brain space here, we can do a couple different things. One thing we can do is we can go here and click the AV button, and if you see it says hover for AFNI view. And what's going to happen with that is it will open up actually the AFNI GUI to show us this same data set, and this slice here, if I move this, hopefully we recognize it, it's that middle slice, and this sagittal view is that sagittal slice there. And now if we want to move through our data set more and with all the other interactive features in the AFNI GUI, we can do that here. So I don't have to find the data set. The convenience of this button is what I'm looking at is preloaded, and that'll be the case when we have all sorts of other things like overlays and that as well. And if I'm done clicking around and seeing what I wanted to see, if I want to close everything at once, this dialog pop-up here, in this case, it just tells me the data set that I'm looking at, which is, I probably knew that already. Other dialog pop-ups have more helpful messages if there's some kind of interactive feature, but I can just click this button, done, and it goes away, and I can keep on rolling with my quality control check. The NV button here, if I click on that, that stands for NiiVue. And what this does is it opens up a NiiVue instance that's embedded within the web page. So I don't open up a GUI outside of the web page. This is in it. It is also interactive. NiiVue is a really nice functionality that is primarily developed by Chris Rorden and Taylor Henike. And we worked with them to have a lot of the similar viewing for a lot of AFNI features that we want as well, which is very convenient. And again, this is a nice way I can surf through the data. This is a 3D rendering, something analogous to what Sumo would do. And if I scroll back and forth with a scroll wheel on my mouse or on the trackpad, I can rotate around and zoom in and out, and I can see a different bit of information about my data set. I can also hit the C button, which stands for clipping, and I can clip the data set so I can see inside of it. And now, while I'm in that clipping mode, if I use my scroll wheel or trackpad and scroll, I can move through the slices like this. If I hit the C button again, I get the clipping in the same place, but now in the opposite direction. And as I keep hitting it more times, I get all the different slice planes. So this is obviously the axial view, and I can move through here, and then I can go back to the beginning. So that's really nice. And when I'm done with that, if I click the NV button, it goes away again, and I can carry on. So these buttons are quite useful for looking at data. Something else that exists here that we haven't talked about quite yet is beneath each one of these section titles, so the QC block buttons, there's another thing, and this is actually a button. And what the idea of these are is, as I go through the quality control, I want to save information about whether I'm happy with what I see or unhappy with it, or whether I have a question. And I want to be able to save that very quickly. So what I can do is, for the different features in a section, I'm just going to shrink this down so I see more at once. So in this vorg section, I see the raw EPI data. I see the standard deviation of the EPI data, or the variance, I guess, a scaled variance of it, the time series. And then the anatomical data set here. In this case, it's been skull stripped, and that's something I can also check. And again, field of view, coverage, tissue contrast. And then the last part of this section is, what's the initial overlap between the EPI and the anatomical data set? Because if something goes wrong in the EPI and anatomical failure, this is something I'll probably want to look at. So these are the things that we have about the original quality of the data, the original properties of the data sets from this volumetric view. If I'm happy with it, I can click once, and it's a positive and a blue, kind of a cheerful color. So this means I'm happy with it. If I click again, the ominous red and the X signifies I'm unhappy with it. And if I click again, it means I have maybe a question about it. And if I keep clicking, I scroll through this set of options to save my feelings about it. So this is kind of good, bad, or other, or unsure. And particularly with the unsure case, I might want to save a comment. And what I can do is, instead of just clicking on this, I can hold down Control, or the Command key if you're on a Mac, and this brings up a text box, and I can save a comment about this. So if I wanted to say something like the cerebellum ? Because maybe I'm wondering whether we should have the cerebellum in our field of view, I can type that and just hit enter, and immediately this rating is saved and the comment is saved. And actually, just as soon as I click on the button, it was saved. And it's really saved in a deep way. So in that QC directory that we showed earlier, in the terminal here, something actually maybe I should show here, that this is keeping a live communication between the file disk system and the HTML. So as I do things here and save things, Cerebellum, should we have it? You can see that that has been saved here, and there's a little update. It's a little bit like using a Jupyter notebook. So I don't need to click some other button. It's just there. The next time I open this, the comment and the QC rating are both there saved. If I want to share this with a colleague or publish this and put this online, all I need to do is provide the QC directory, and everything there is self-contained that I can open up the QC HTML and keep going. And then if I'm control clicking, and if I wanted to get rid of this text later, I can either delete it or hit clear text. And now actually, if you notice, something I should have mentioned is if I put a comment here and save it, how do I know there's a comment saved here? Because there's quotation marks around the rating, so I know that there's a comment that I can view. And if I want to get rid of not just the text here, but even the fact that I made a rating in the first place, I can click clear all, and everything goes away. Okay, so if I click, I can scroll through this menu. If I didn't want to have any rating, I can get rid of it. And again, I can open this up and click on it and save any comment that I wanted. And the next person opens up, or if I come later to view this, I can edit the comment and things like that. And for each different block here, I can save a rating. Each of these tabs, as I mentioned before, helps me jump through the HTML to a different section. The only one that doesn't is this final. And this final might be something where I just want to save overall my final evaluation of the subject. Is the subject, do I feel good about this data, not so good about it, or am I uncertain? And so this is, we'll see in a different video how I can actually programmatically use these ratings and incorporate them with command line dropping of subjects or exclusion criteria for my subjects. So I could do that by an individual item here, or what I might do is I might keep notes on individual items and then overall keep my final rating as well by the time I finish it. All right, and so we'll look in more detail at a lot of the features here, but this gives you an overview of the schema or the purpose of this and how it works in general.